السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Why some Muslims do not feel the happiness and the joy of Eid al-Adha, the Eid that comes after the Hajj, the Eid that starts on the 10th day of Thul Hijja. Why only those who go on Hajj or the pilgrims they feel the happiness and the joy of the Eid and the rejoice that the Eid brings about? If we look at Ramadan and the Eid that comes right after Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, we find that almost every Muslim will be very happy because of the acts of worship that he or she did in Ramadan, such as praying, fasting, charity, reading the Quran, etc. So why we miss this in Eid al-Adha? We miss this because we do not realize the importance of the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah or the first 9 days of Dhul Hijjah, and these 10 days are the best 10 days of the whole year, as our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us. So inshallah in this video we will go over the importance of these first 10 days through some commentary on the first 5 or 6 ayat of Surah Al-Fajr, and then we will mention some ahadith on these days. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who listen the speech and follow its best, and help us to make benefit and to make the best use of these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, so that we will rejoice the Eid and we will find and feel the happiness of the Eid, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His wisdom and His knowledge and His mercy, He chose some people over others. He chose the prophets, alayhim salatu wassalam. He chose the prophets over other people. The prophets did not become prophets because they did something that made them prophets. No, Allah chose them. Allah yastafi min al-malaikati rusulan wa min al-nas. Allah chooses messengers from among the angels and from among people. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses certain places to be blessed places, to be holy places, like Mecca, like Medina, Al-Munawwara, ala sakiniha Abdallh salatu wassalam, Mecca, Al-Mukarrama, like Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa and Sham and that area. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses sometimes to be blessed more than other times. He's the creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. He decides what's more blessed, what's more holy, what's more important. So He chose Ramadan subhanahu wa ta'ala. He chose Ramadan to be the best month. He chose Laylatul Qadr to be the best night. And He chose the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, which is the last month in the lunar calendar, the Islamic calendar. He chose those first 10 days to be the best days ever in the whole year. Even better than the days of Ramadan. According to most scholars, the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, they are more blessed and more holy, and the good deeds in them are more rewardable than the days of Ramadan. But the nights of Ramadan are more important and more holy and more blessed. So these days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses these times so that He urges us, He encourages us, so that we do more deeds, so that we purify our souls and get closer to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah, think if all times are the same, if all times of the year, all days, all months are all equal or are the same, you will find there's a kind of stillness, there's a kind of boredom, but when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preferred sometimes over others, He is telling you and He is showing you that this is a season that you have to make use of. Just like now people, subhanAllah, see when there are seasons of sales. Our Shaykh, subhanAllah, in Syria, he used to tell us when he was encouraging us to attend the classes and the lectures, he would say, he came to the States and he came to Europe and he had da'wah trips. So he said, people in those countries, they would go and line up next to the shopping centers before Fajr prayer or at Fajr time. They will be lining up for the sales. So you as a Muslim, where are you in the Fajr prayer? What are you doing in the Fajr prayer? Those people, for the worldly gains, they are there lining up, and I saw this here with my own eyes. Of course, we believe our sheikhs as it is certain, but now we saw it with our own eyes. I saw them making kind of tents either, putting some tents next to those shopping centers and in a long line. What for? For some trivial sales, some trivial things. Subhanallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He gives you these seasons so that you make up what you missed in the other days, so that you come closer to Him, so that you make use of these blessed chances. This is also, dear brothers, a great sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love for His creatures. A great sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves people. Allah does not want to punish us. He never created us so that He punishes us. What can, as He said subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. What can Allah do with punishing you if you are grateful and if you believe in Him? What can He benefit? He doesn't benefit. So He doesn't want to punish you. And this is why He sent you the guidance. He sent you the messengers. And after all this, when you deviate, He gave you the ways to purify yourself, to go back to the way, to clean yourself, to come closer to Him so that you be happy. You will never be happy except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Except if you are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you get if you become the richest person in the world, and we have the richest people in the world, the Scandinavian countries, in those countries, they have the biggest percentage of suicide. The countries in which the income, the individual income is the highest, even highest than the states, they have the highest percentage of suicide. What does that mean? وَلَسْتُ أَرَى السَّعَادَةَ جَمْعَ مَالٍ وَلَكِنَّ التَّقِيَّ هُوَ السَّعِيدُ. I don't see happiness in gathering and having a lot of wealth, but the taqi is the one who is happy, the one who will be happy. So these blessed occasions and these seasons are a great sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us. Here's the chance for you. You make up what you missed. Come closer to me. Do small deeds, as we will see inshallah. In these days, you do small deeds, you will be rewarded so great, more than all the other days, as we will mention the hadith inshallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Al-Fajr, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wal-Fajr, wa-layalin ashr, wal-Shaf'i wal-Watr, wal-Layli idha yasr, هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد. These first five ayat, we'll go over them inshallah, so that when we read Surah Al-Fajr, we know what we're reading, and they have relation to these blessed days. Wal-Fajr, this waw, when you see this waw in the Quran, in the beginning of some surah, this is called the waw of qasam, the waw of the oath. So wal-Fajr means Allah is swearing by the dawn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the dawn. We as creatures, as people, we should never ever swear by anything except by the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Creator, He can swear by anything He likes. And when He swears by something, He's telling you that this is very important thing. So He's swearing by the dawn. Al-Fajr, as the scholars say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swore by the Fajr, by the dawn, because it is one of the best times to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during Fajr prayer. When you go to Fajr prayer, you feel, subhanAllah, that special atmosphere, that special spirituality, that special closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you attend Fajr prayer. That quietness, that khushu' of the heart in Fajr prayer. So this is the very first point. Where are we at Fajr time? This is the very first point to benefit from this ayah. Allah is swearing by this blessed time. Where are you in this time? Are you standing in prayer, making dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reading Quran? And we will come and we will see, inshallah, one of the great deeds about Fajr prayer and the reward of Fajr prayer and dhikr after Fajr prayer. Well, Fajr, some scholars, they said, it's not only the Fajr in general, it is the Fajr of the day of Nahr, which is the 10th day of Thul Hijja, which is the day of Eid. Right? The day of Eid is the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah. It's called the day of Nahr, where people make this, Nahr means sacrifice, where they make the sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to feed the poor and the needy. Right? So, Al-Fajr, this is the first sign about these blessed days. Allah is swearing by the Fajr, the dawn of the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah. This means it's a very important day. Another thing, Al-Fajr is a sign that guides you to realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greatness and power. How He brought this light after the night. This alternation of day and night is one of the great signs that guides you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As He mentioned, Surah Al Imran, the last 10 ayat, 11 ayat, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Surely in the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of the day and night, there are signs for people of understanding. So this is the word Fajr. This is Wal-Fajr. وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ, and I swear by the 10 nights. What are these 10 nights? The nights of the first 10 days of the Hijjah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by these 10 nights. This means they are so blessed nights, and the days of those blessed nights are also blessed days, are holy days, are important days, sacred days. As our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in the hadith narrated by Imam Ahmad, he says, إِنَّ الْعَشْرَ عَشْرُ الْأَضْحَى. The Ashr that is mentioned here is the Ashr of Al-Adha, means the Ashr of the first 10 days of the Hijjah. Then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَالْوَتْرِ يَوْمُ عَرَفَةِ وَالشَّفَعِ يَوْمُ النَّحْرِ. The watr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also swears by in the third ayah, He says, وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. I swear by the shafa', which means the even, and al-watr, which means the odd. So the Prophet ﷺ interpreted this to be the even is the 10th day of the Hijjah, which is the day of Eid. And the odd is the 9th, because 9 is odd, right? And 10 is even. So the watr is the day of Arafah, which is an odd number, the 9th day of the Hijjah, which is one of the most blessed days as well.
So Arafah
is the day of Arafah. And we will mention now the merit of fasting the day of Arafah, inshallah. So, وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ, the odd and the even. And in everything there is odd and even. And some scholars, they said, everything is even, but only the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala is odd, means He is watr. There's nothing like Him. But everything else, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ. From everything we created two pairs, or pair, right? Pair, you say pair or two pair? Pair. From everything we created pair. SubhanAllah. Think you have day and night. You have sun and moon. Even in the autumn itself, there are pairs in everything. But Allah alone is al-fard, al-watr. Inna Allah watrun yuhibbu al-watr. وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. Why the day of Arafah? Allah is swearing by it. And why He's swearing by the day of Nahr? The day of Arafah, where people, hundreds of thousands, especially in these days, hundreds of thousands, they will gather on the Mount of Arafat. What will they do? Thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, about more than 2 million people, all of them from so many countries, from different nationalities, different ethnicities, different colors, all of them, they have the same clothes and the same dua, the same supplicating to their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why this day is one of the most blessed days, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives so many people on this day, and the shaitan, as the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will never be belittled and humiliated and sad more than this day, the day of Arafah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by this day. Yawm al-Nahr, and Arafah is the main pillar of Hajj. If you miss all the pillars of Hajj, you can make them up, but you cannot make Arafah up. If you get the day of Arafah, you got Hajj. The main pillar of Hajj is Arafah. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swore by the day of Arafah. Also, Al-Shafa', which is Yawm al-Nahr, because most of the rituals of the Hajj, the slaughtering, the sacrifice, and the tawaf, and the cutting the hair, and these things, most of them, they take place in the day of Nahr. So these rituals, all of them, of course, they remind us of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and his wife, and Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, how they submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how they accepted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. So we follow their footsteps and we revive this tradition of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam and of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. One more understanding of الشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ is the odd and even prayers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the prayers. The odd ones like Maghrib, and the even ones like the rest of the prayers. So, وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ. Then, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ. By the night when it passes. Why the night? Again, the night is the time where or when lovers meet one another. Where those who love one another, they meet and they talk. The night is the time where you're supposed to be supplicating and remembering your Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that you have to love more than everything else. This is the night. The night is the chance for you to have the high levels. وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. Make tahajjud in the night so that Allah gives you a great level, a high level. The night also, as we mentioned about the Fajr, which is the beginning of the day, also we repeat the same thing when we talk about the night. The night is a great sign of the majesty, greatness, power, mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See Surah Al-Qasas, ayah 71. قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمُ اللَّيْلَ سَرْمَدًا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ إِلَهٌ غَيْرُ اللَّهِ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِضِيَاءٍ أَفَلَا تَسْمَعُونَ. Say, if Allah made the night eternal and persistent until the day of judgment, who other than Allah can bring you light and can bring you day? Don't you hear? Then he says, say, if Allah made the day persistent until the day of judgment, who other than Allah can bring you a night or the night in which you find rest and you take rest. أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ, don't you see? SubhanAllah, here he said أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ, means you don't see this day. If he made it persistent, what will happen to you? If there's no night, we will perish. We cannot live without night. Our brains cannot persist continuous light. So those who stay up late, you see they start feeling tired. They start feeling tired. Even if they're not doing anything, you start feeling tired because this is how you program. You need night to take rest. Even in some hospitals, if there are some patients who suffer from some diseases, especially diseases related to nerves and the nerve system and these things and the brain, there's something called, as our Sheikh told us, the dark room in some hospitals, which is 10% dark. There isn't a single light that they put patients who need complete rest. And this is, by the way, also a sunnah that when you sleep, you leave no light on.
No light at all?
No light on. As the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith narrated, I think by Imam Bukhari, I'm gonna check it inshallah. He said that switch off the lights. أطفئوا مصابيحكم. When you go to bed, switch off the lights. And this is one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. If we think about it scientifically, this is one of the miracles. And there is another reason, of course. In their time, they used to use the fire, right, for light. So maybe at night, if something happens, the fire will fall and it will burn. It will burn the house. That's another wisdom. But I think, inshallah, Muslim scientists, they should search this hadith, and it has a scientific miracle, because also when there's complete darkness, that will give you more rest. More rest. So this is وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرُ. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرُ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر. Before we move to this fifth ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swore by Al-Fajr, وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرٍ. He swore by 4 things. He swore 4 oaths. What is he swearing about, subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now you say, by Allah, I'm going to do this, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by 4 things. What is he swearing about? The scholars, they say he's swearing that those who reject the message, they will be punished. So by Al-Fajr, by the dawn, by the 10 blessed nights, by the odd and the even, by the night when it comes, those who reject the message, they will be punished. And the proof for this is that the following ayah says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِعَادٍ. Did not you see how your Lord punished the people of Ad, who rejected their prophet Sayyidina Hud alayhi salam? When he gave them the clear message, they rejected him. Don't you know how they were punished and destroyed? And they were so strong people. So also you guys, this address is for the people in the time of our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm swearing, Allah is swearing by this and this and this. If you don't believe, you will be punished just like the people of Ad. This is the first 5 ayat of Surah Al-Fajr. After this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لِذِي حِجْرٍ. Means, is not this a sufficient and convincing oath for people of understanding? The hijr means the aql. Is there not a sufficient and convincing oath for people of understanding? Absolutely there is. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of people of understanding. So these are the 10 blessed nights Allah swore by them, and the 10 blessed days of Dhul Hijjah. And now we move to the hadith on these days. The Prophet ﷺ says, as in the hadith narrated by Imam Bukhari radiyallahu anhu, the Prophet said sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there are no days in which the good deeds are dearer to Allah than these 10 days of the Hijjah, the first 10 days. The good deeds, the best day or the best time to do good deeds, where it will be most loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is in these 10 days. Then the Sahaba asked, radiyallahu anhu, they said, even jihad for the sake of Allah, even if someone does jihad for the sake of Allah out of these 10 days, to do good deeds in these 10 days, it is more love to Allah than jihad in other days? He said yes. And jihad, of course, in Islam is only defensive, is only for defense. And this defense, very briefly, is either defending your own self or your own country, or defending the oppressed ones, defending the freedom of people. This is only why jihad is prescribed in Islam. Not to force people to accept the religion. There is no compulsion in religion, as Allah said subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not to impose your will over people. Not to plunder the resources of people. That's absolutely has nothing to do with jihad in Islam. So, and this is of course the one of the meanings of the word jihad, which is meant in this hadith. But jihad in Islam has a broader sense, and the greatest jihad is the jihad which means the struggle or the strife against your own desires. As the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Prophet said in the authentic hadith, al-mujahid man jahada nafsahu fi dhatillah. As he said in the authentic hadith, al-mujahid, and this has relation to what we mentioned before we start about the purification. You cannot purify yourself without striving and struggling against your own desires and your own ego. And that's the true jihad, that's the major jihad, as narrated in some hadith, which is not very authentic, but the meaning is very correct, that when he came back from one of the battles, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, you have come back from the minor jihad to the greater jihad. The minor jihad, the jihad of the battle, the fight, to the major jihad, which is the jihad against your desires and your ego. So they said, he told them to do the good deeds in these 10 days. It's dearer to Allah than doing the good deeds in any other day. They said, even jihad, even if we do jihad in other days? They said, yes, except if someone goes for jihad with his wealth and with his soul, of course, and he comes back with nothing. Means he sacrificed his soul and his wealth for the sake of Allah. Then that will be similar, not even greater, similar to doing the good deeds in these blessed days, in these 10 days. It is not the good deeds in these 10 days are dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except if someone does that action. Then maybe it will be dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or even equal to the good deeds in these 10 days. Another narration narrated by Imam Bayhaqi, rahimahullah, that there are no deeds, there is no good that you can do which is more rewardable in the sight of Allah than doing it in these 10 days. So it's more rewardable, it's dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's greater than doing good deeds in any other day. Subhanallah, yani, are Muslims aware of the importance of these days? When the Muslim has an idea about these days, he will try to do his best to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these days, to do good deeds. And as Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, as Imam Ibn Kathir mentioned on the tafsir of the ayah about that there are 11 months in the year and 4 of them are sacred. There are 4 sacred months, and this month, Thul Hijja, that we are in, and the next month, which is Thul Hijja, are part of those sacred months. And the other one is Muharram, and the 4th one is Rajab. These 4 months that are sacred, as Allah mentioned subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Tawbah, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma said that the good deeds in these sacred months are more rewardable than the good deeds in other months, and the sins in these months are more serious than the sins in other months. This is the 4 sacred months. So what about the most blessed 10 days of the year? It's even more and more and more sacred. SubhanAllah. So how you forget to remind Muslims about these days? May Allah forgive us and teach us. So this is why, as in this hadith, same hadith narrated by Imam al-Bayhaqi, the narrator is saying, Sa'id bin Jubayr, one of the tabi'een, one of those who met the Sahaba, he's saying, when the Ashr days of the Hijjah starts, he would roll up his sleeves and make his best in worship to Allah, to the extent no one can compete him, radiallahu anhu. No one can beat him in his acts of worship on those days. Now, let's ask why. What is the wisdom? What is the reason that these 10 days are the most blessed of the whole year? Anyone has an idea? The scholars mentioned some reasons. One of the main reasons is that in the whole year you cannot apply and practice the 5 pillars of Islam altogether except in these 10 days. Only in these 10 days you can apply and practice the 5 pillars of Islam. In these 10 days you say the Shahadatain, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Sayyidina Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You pray, you fast, you give charity, and you can do Hajj. Any other days other than these 10 days, you cannot practice the 5 pillars altogether. Because Hajj has only this time. You cannot do Hajj in other days. And this is another thing the scholars mentioned, which is the Hajj. The Hajj also has a very, very important value in Islam that makes these days blessed, where all people, a huge number of people from so many countries, so many nationalities, so many languages, they all come together to submit to the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. We are here to obey and to respond to you, O Lord. All of them, they leave their families, they leave their work, and they go. Why? يذكر الله في أيام معدودات and معلومات, so that they remember Allah in those specific days. They remember Allah. وَلِيَشْهَدُوا مَنَافِعَ لَهُمْ, and they will have a lot of benefits for their soul and for their life as well. Because after Hajj, it's good also that it has to be, as our Shaykh used to say, may Allah have mercy on him, he said Hajj has to be a conference for all Muslim leaders to search the issues of the Ummah, to search the problems of the Ummah. He said the Hajj should be a conference for all Muslim leaders. Because Allah said, وَلِيَشْهَدُوا مَنَافِعَ لَهُمْ, so that they have benefits. And that is not only the religious, spiritual benefits, no. It is a season where the Muslims, every year, the Muslim leaders particularly, reflect on the situation of the Ummah and gather and think to resolve the issues of the Ummah. But now, unfortunately, the Hajj is only decreased to some rituals And even some Muslims who do these rituals, some of them even they don't understand what they're doing. I hear some stories sometimes I don't believe, but because trustworthy people tell us, they say that some people on Arafat, on that sacred place, on that most sacred day, they are chatting and they are, some of them, I heard things, some of them smoke there, some of them, yani, may Allah forgive Muslims, some of them they don't know what they're doing. Their rituals, these rituals or rites turn to be just like practices, just like salah, just exercise up and down without a soul, without reflection, without benefits. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yani, make us of those who do these acts of worship in its true sense. So Hajj, as we mentioned about the day of Arafah, very important day, very blessed day. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these blessed days, and this is the last point inshallah, what should we do then in these days? The most blessed days, the great days, what should we do in these days? Imam Ahmad narrated radiallahu anhu after he mentioned the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that these are the best days to in which you can do the good deeds and it will be dearer to Allah. Excuse me. He said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فأكثروا فيهن من التسبيح والتحميد والتهليل والتكبير. Make a lot of tasbih, which means what? Saying subhanallah. Which means what? Which means what? Allah is glorified. Which means Allah is beyond and free from any imperfection, and He has all perfections. Subhanallah. This is subhanallah. And this is why in many ayat in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how some people disobey Allah and associate partners with Allah, after those ayat He says subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yushrikun. He's beyond what they're ascribing to Him and attributing to Him. He's beyond any imperfection. He's beyond having a child. He's beyond having limits. He's beyond having a place to be in. He's beyond being in a direction. He's beyond having parts. He's beyond movement, having needing to move or needing beyond any need. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanahu wa ta'ala amma yasifun. He's beyond and glorified above what they describe Him with. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So subhanallah, again the importance of dhikr that also we mentioned is an essential way for purification is dhikr. Tasbih, wa tahmeed, praising Allah, thanking Allah. Wa tahleel, saying la ilaha illallah. Tahleel means saying la ilaha illallah. There is none worthy of worship but Allah. Wa takbir, magnifying, glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than everything. Not by words, by actions, by your actions. When you do anything, you do it for Allah because Allah is greater. You don't fear anyone because Allah is greater, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So adhkar, good deeds, and particularly the obligatory deeds. Before you do any voluntary deeds, you have to take care of your obligatory deeds. And we will just take some examples, inshallah. Salah. First of all, salah. We mentioned about dhikr. So, make a lot of dhikr in these blessed days and take care of your salah. First of all, the obligatory one and then the voluntary one. Let's take the obligatory one. Let's take just one hadith about Fajr prayer. This hadith narrated by Imam al-Tirmidhi radiyallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, whoever prays Fajr in Jama'ah, in a group, in the congregation, in the masjid, then he sits to remember Allah until sunrise. He prays Fajr in Jama'ah, then he sits to remember Allah until sunrise. Then he prays 2 rak'at, means duha. Then he will have the reward of Hajj and Umrah. That is tamma. Tamma. 2 times he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means perfect, complete, means it will be accepted. Not everyone who goes on Hajj his Hajj is valid. Not everyone who goes on Hajj, his Hajj is accepted. No. But if you cannot go on Hajj this year, you have a chance to get the reward of Hajj every day. Every day. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah, see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yani, as we say in Arabic, يجبر بالخواطر. Yani he shows mercy and love for those who cannot afford Hajj. Don't be sad. You can get the reward of Hajj. You cannot afford it, don't worry. No problem. Allah will not overburden you. Pray Fajr prayer in Jama'ah, sit to remember Allah. Pray 2 rak'at of duha. You will get the reward of Hajj and Umrah that is accepted by the guarantee of who?
Allah.
Of our beloved sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was given the guarantee from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not from his own mind sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is the salah. One more hadith, also authentic hadith, about the voluntary prayer. He said sallallahu alayhi wasallam about the voluntary rak'at of Fajr prayer. He says, think of this hadith and think, how come you lose these 2 rak'at after hearing this hadith? He said sallallahu alayhi wasallam, rak'ata al-fajr khayrun min ad-dunya wa ma fiha. The 2 rak'at of Fajr are better than the whole world with all what it contains. What 2 rak'at? The sunnah prayers. The 2 rak'at of the sunnah of Fajr. So what about the obligatory ones then? And this is why our beloved said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as in the hadith, the authentic hadith, he said, there is no salah that is more difficult on the hypocrites like Fajr and Isha. But what I want to quote is not this. He says, and if they know what these 2 prayers have, they would have come to them even if they needed to crawl. They would not have left those 2 prayers, means in the masjid, even if they needed to come crawling. I think this is more than enough from our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam about salah and the importance of salah. So try, inshallah, to do your best. Everyone has a car, and I think, alhamdulillah, even in this country, everyone, he has the masjid close, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Go, take your children and go, let them pray and come back. They will not lose anything. Let them get used to this. And one more hadith, inshallah, one more gift from our beloved sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Another authentic hadith, he said sallallahu alayhi wasallam, بشر المشائين إلى المساجد في الظلم بالنور التام يوم القيامة. Give the glad tidings for those who go and who walk in the darkness to the masjid. Give them the glad tidings that they will give the perfect light, a complete light on the day of judgment. What he means, Fajr and Isha. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is about prayer. The second thing which is so important is fasting. Fasting in these blessed 9-10 days. But for us, we cannot fast the 10th day of the Hijjah because it is the day of Eid, which is forbidden that you fast it. So fasting those 9 days of the Hijjah, each single day of them, if you fast all of them, all these 9 days, it's so rewardable. It's so great, so important. If you fast one day voluntarily for the sake of Allah, not in these days, in normal days, if you fast one day voluntarily, listen what your beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. In the hadith narrated by Imam Muslim, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever fasts one day for the sake of Allah, he will be away from the hellfire for a distance of 70 years traveling. 70 years traveling. You will be away from the hellfire with fasting just one day. SubhanAllah. After hearing this hadith, how can we lose these chances? As I told you in the beginning, are not these signs that Allah doesn't want to punish you? Doesn't want to punish you. He loves you. He's giving you all these chances. Look, SubhanAllah, just reflect on this hadith. Just reflect on this hadith. He's telling you, just quit food and drink and relations with your spouse if you're married. From dawn prayer to sunset. Just do this. I will put you away from the hellfire 70 years. The distance of 70 years traveling. SubhanAllah, is not this the Lord of mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does not He love you, subhanahu wa ta'ala? And this again, Brother Muhammad, is one of the essential ways of purification. Because you cannot fast until you struggle against your own desires and ego. Because your soul, your ego, you always wants food and drink. So when you strive and struggle against your own desires by fasting, you're doing jihad. And that will help you to purify yourself. So prayer, fasting, especially the day of Arafah. If you cannot fast, at least fast Monday and Thursday of these 9 days. If you cannot, at least the day of Arafah. Never miss the day of Arafah. From now, inshallah, have the intention to fast the day of Arafah that the Prophet said about, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one who fasts the day of Arafah. I pray to Allah that the sins of 2 years will be forgiven. The sins of 2 years, the sins of the past year and the sins of the current year will be forgiven if you fast the day of Arafah. All these are authentic hadith. Don't let the shaitan at all comes to you and tell you, maybe this is not. Never. I never mention, inshallah, any hadith unless it is authentic. And if it's not authentic, I will mention. So, this is the day of Arafah. One last thing, inshallah, or two last things. The first one is the udhiyah, the sacrifice. If you can sacrifice a lamb or a cow or for the sake of Allah, also these 10 days are the best days. Particularly, of course, the sacrifice time start after Eid prayer. That's very rewardable act. Your sins will be removed with the first drop of blood of the animal you sacrifice for the sake of Allah. Why I'm mentioning this now? Because if you have the intention to make the sacrifice, which is, according to the majority of Muslim scholars, very preferable, and according to some of them, like Imam Abu Hanifa, may Allah be pleased with him and may Allah raise his ranks in paradise, he said it is obligatory, it is wajib, that you make the sacrifice if you can afford it. In the whole year you have just once. $70, $80, $90, $100, whatever. It's not that much in the whole year. So that you feed those Muslims who are suffering and who are hungry, whether here or in all the countries around the world. So sacrifice is very important. If you intend to do that, then it is very preferable, again according to the majority of Muslim scholars, that you do not take, starting with the first day of the Hijjah, until you sacrifice. You don't clip your nails, and you don't shave or cut your hair. As if you're likening yourself to the Hujjaj, to those pilgrims who are doing these rituals. So this is the about the sacrifice. One more thing related to Arafah also. Try on the day of Arafah, after Asr prayer, to also liken yourself to those who are in those sacred places. At that time, there's all of their time supplicating and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why in Syria and in many countries, they gather in the masjid at Asr time and they keep making dua and supplication to Allah until Maghrib. And of course they are fasting. So imagine, very blessed day, one of the most blessed days of the year, and for some scholars it is the most blessed day of the year, which is the day of Arafah. And you are fasting, and you are in the masjid and you are supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah Allah will give you the reward of those ones who are on the Mount of Arafah. And this is something many of the early scholars they used to make, which is called ta'rif. Ta'rif means gathering in the masjid on the day of Arafah to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to pray to Him. And also it was done by one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. This is something, inshallah, very, very important, very rewardable, and many scholars, they urged that you do this in this time where the Hujjaj are supplicating to Allah on the Mount of Arafat. You also dedicate your heart and sit and liken yourself to them and also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who, as He hears them, He can hear you, and as He forgives them, He can forgive you subhanahu wa ta'ala. And last thing, good deeds are not only limited to these acts, fasting and prayer and hajj and dua. Helping others is a very, very rewardable good deed. And I will mention just one hadith, inshallah, on this, and we will finish this reminder, inshallah. Our beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, as in the hadith narrated by Imam Tabarani and others, he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the most loved creatures to Allah, the most loved people to Allah are those who are most beneficial to His creatures. And the most loved deeds to Allah is, or are the ones through which you bring about happiness to a Muslim. Then he gives some examples, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, like paying off the debt of your fellow Muslim, helping him, feeding him. And he said then, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if I walk with my Muslim brother to fulfill one of his needs, is dearer to me than making i'tikaf for one whole month in the masjid. To go with my brother and help him fulfill his need is dearer to me than making seclusion with Allah in the masjid for one whole month. Allahu Akbar. Why? Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Helping others, Muslims and non-Muslims. This is not limited to Muslims. Sometimes non-Muslims need your help more, especially your message, especially your reminder about Islam. Why these acts are more rewardable than the voluntary acts of worship? The voluntary work in which you help others is more rewardable than the voluntary acts of worship that you do for yourself. Why? Because you are preferring others over yourself. So Allah will give you more reward. Because when you do the acts of worship for yourself voluntarily, you're benefiting yourself, right? You're benefiting yourself. But when you spend this time that you have extra after you have fulfilled your obligations, you're spending this time to help others, then you have preferred others over yourself, so Allah will give you more. So you have showed some generosity, Allah is the most generous. He will give you more. Allahumma lakal hamd, Allahumma lakal hamd, Allahumma lakal hamd. Oh Allah, make us of those who listen to the speech and follow its best.
وصلي اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.